Hello and welcome to another scrapbooking process video. I'm Tracy, also known as MercyTiara, and I share scrapbooking process videos, project shares, tips and tricks, unboxings, and more here on my channel. Today I'm working with the Outdoorsy kit from MercyTiara Kits. I was really excited to start working with this kit, so I jumped into it this past weekend while I was live streaming with my patrons, which is something I do every month with my tiaras over on Patreon. And I really wanted to use this path paper. It is a paper from the Trail Mix collection from Simple Stories, which came in the kit. And ever since I saw this paper, I have been wanting to work with it, so I couldn't resist having it be my first page that I did with this kit. And I have to admit that this whole layout is more product driven than anything else, although it's going to serve as the first page of a series of pages that will document a particular hiking trip that we took. So I'm going to start. I have this photo. It's a photo of our feet, but it's actually a photo of somebody taking a photo of our feet. And I really love how it looks because the photo in the iPhone screen is in focus, and then our actual feet are out of focus. And I think that just gives a cool intro photo for this series of pages. So I'm going to use that on this page. As you see, I grabbed a piece of black cardstock from my stash because I wanted to really have this photo be bold and very noticeable on the page where it's got such a really busy background. Now, this second paper that I'm using, this gray, it's a wood grain textured cardstock, and it did come in the kit, and it is so lovely. I really, really love this textured cardstock from American Crafts. You will be seeing it in more kits to come for sure because I just adore it. So as you can see, I'm just kind of messing around with it a little bit. I want it to be a little bit torn and tattered, so I did tear the edges on it, and now I'm just taking a minute to make it look a little bit more kind of curled up and rough. And I'm going to come back to this because I'm actually going to change the way that this photo is matted a little bit later on. And I'm not going to use this. I'm just talking about it with my patrons. I like that chipboard frame a lot. And so I'm just having a look at some of the embellishments that I might put along with this photo. So these are the thickers that come in the kit. They're Storyline, and they're unfinished chipboard, and I think they match beautifully color-wise with the pathing on that pattern paper. And then these are some chipboard letter tile stickers. They're also thickers, and they came in the add-on, and I'm really looking forward to using those as well because they're craft. I think they have a real outdoorsy kind of nature kind of look to them. I'm going to cut another piece of this. See how nicely this gray cardstock matches with both those pathing kind of lines on the paper and also with that chipboard that I plan to use, the chipboard letter stickers. So I decided to tear off a strip of it. I cut a strip and then I tore it in half so that I have one straight line and one torn line. And I'm thinking about using it as a header and a footer on my page. I thought for a second there about going vertical instead and using it as a way to balance off the horizontal photo, but I'm not going to end up doing that. Now, I have decided that this paper, which is actually from the Boho Sunshine collection from Simple Stories, also came in the kit. I think everything that I used in this layout came from the kit except for the black cardstock. So I thought about using that on my second, kind of like as the bottom of the page to go with a bit of a half and half page, although it's not exactly half. I never make my pages exactly half. So if I make this a half and half page with the yellow pattern paper at the bottom and the green pattern paper at the top, I'd like to have something that connects the two or runs between the two. And so I grabbed my double embossed dotted lace punch, which is one of my very favorite punches. I've used this so many times over the years. And I'm just going to cut myself a 12-inch strip out of that wood grain textured cardstock that I love so much. I'm just giving some tips there about using a border punch. You just want to make sure that that part on the right side, might be the left for you if you're punching the opposite direction, but the side that is unpunched, you just want to make sure that that is flat against the bumper on your punch, just to make sure that you punch evenly. I know many of us have been using those punches for a long time, but if you haven't used one in a while, you might forget how to use it, or maybe you've never used one of those. And so that's a little tip for you. I'm grabbing my frayed burlap distress ink. I have a little set of tags there that just have swatches of all of my distress inks and my distress oxides. And I am using a finger dauber to just apply some ink along the edges of this border strip. Now I am going to cut this down because I don't want to cover all of that paper. I don't want to waste all of that beautiful cardstock that I love so much, but I'm just keeping it whole during the inking process. It just makes it a little bit easier. Now, one thing that I don't love about inking a scalloped border is that it's very hard to get into those little crevices. So I have this tiny little tool. I actually don't know what this is called or where to get it. My friend Stephanie Hart, who's an artist, she uses this in her mixed media pages, and she had a whole bunch of them and handed me over a few of them. I have maybe 5 or 6. And so I'm sorry that I can't tell you what this is or where to get it. I will try to do some research between now when I'm narrating this and when I post it. And if I know what it's called, I will link it in the information section below. But meanwhile, if you know what this is called, please leave me a comment, because I'm sure I will get some questions about this. I thought a little bit about it as I was doing it. This tool is great because it's just got a tiny little bit of foam, or it's almost like a flocked top on it, so it does hold the ink. It's a perfect tool for this, but if you don't have this tool, you could just take a toothpick and wrap it with a tissue, like a little piece of Kleenex or something, and that might work. I'm going to use a brown pen to outline the border of this paper, just to add a little bit more distinction where these two papers meet. Now I am going to trim this down because I don't want to waste all that paper that will end up being covered by the yellow paper. And I'm just going to run my Tombow tape runner across there, get that up off of my work mat. There we go. And now I can use the grid lines on my work mat to lay that out straight. And then I should be able to just place this like that, and it's nice and straight. Now for this paper, I was about to just take off the manufacturer's strip, and then I realized so much of this is going to be covered, I might as well get another chunk of it because I love this paper so much. Now I do have the extra pattern paper add-on, so I do have 2 of this piece, but I love it so much that I'll take anything I can get. Now I am wasting a lot of it here. I could have saved even more of it, but like I said, I do have 2 pieces, so I don't necessarily need that much of it. Again, I'm using my grid mat here because this piece is less than 12 and this piece is more than it needs to be. So in order to make sure that this is 12 by 12, I'm just aligning it in the corner of my work mat and just using the lines on my work mat to identify where 12 inches is. Now I've got a little bit of a sliver here that I want to take off. So I'm using my Caterpillar crop, which is the smaller Caterpillar trimmer. I love that trimmer, but it's a little bit too bulky for me to use as my everyday trimmer. So I just pull it out when I need it, like I did today. So now I just pulled those scallops back a little bit to give them a little bit of lift and texture. That'll give me a very subtle gray shadow underneath of them, and I just really love that look. So that's what I'm going for there. And now I'm going to work on embellishing. Now I want most of my embellishments, if not all of them, to fall on this yellow paper because they're going to stand out a lot more on the yellow paper than they will on that green pattern paper on the top. Just using the very last of my roll of wax paper. I've been using this roll of wax paper since 2014, if you can believe it. That's how long it took me to use up an entire roll. And don't ask me why I remember that. All of my memories are stored chronologically in my mind according to what international student was living with us at the time. And I remember Marcel helping me to cut that tube of wax paper because it was too long for the dispenser I had at the time. Now I am going to use these tile letter stickers that came in the kit. Oh my gosh, I love these. I love that they're tile letter stickers, but they're chipboard, so they've got quite a bit more dimension than your typical tile letter stickers, and I just adore that. And they're very woodsy and natural, so they're perfect. I'm just demonstrating there. I had just made a little mini album the night before, a very, very basic one. You'll see it on my channel, but I had inked these chipboard letter stickers. I had inked them with the frayed burlap, and I really loved how it turned out. So I'm going to do the same thing here. Because I've already used the frayed burlap on the edge of the border punch, I thought that it would be good to just repeat that same color. I don't want to use too many colors here. And that, of course, is mounted on waxed paper so that I can move it around my page and think about where I want it to be. Now, as you can see, I have the Simple Stories Trail Mix die cuts here. They came in, I believe, the main kit. Yes, I'm sure they came in the main kit. And so I pulled out a couple of those. I really love die cuts that have room for journaling on them, as opposed to die cuts that are just shapes. I feel like some of the die cuts that are just shapes, you could oftentimes they're present in the papers and you could kind of cut them out. Although I don't love cutting things out. So it's not that I don't love die cut sets, but I really love a die cut set that's more versatile than just a bunch of little shapes. So these journaling bits and pieces are wonderful because they have a good assortment. They're mostly journaling pieces, but there's a few little shapes in there too. I am having a look at the Outdoorsy stamp set. This is our exclusive stamp set that is an add-on for the Outdoorsy kit. You can also buy it separately, of course. And I also have some flair that is exclusive to the kit as well. I have a stencil that was an add-on for the kit as well. And I'm just kind of looking at all the things that I have to potentially decorate this bottom area with so that I can figure out how exactly I want to use this stamp set, because I know for sure I want to stamp these hexagons onto this cream cardstock that came in the cardstock add-on, and then I want to cut them out. So I have this sample here. Basically, when the stamps came, I was so excited because it's my very first, well, it's the second, but it was from the first set of exclusive stamp sets that I ever made. And so I immediately took it out and stamped all the shapes on this piece of cardstock, and I really love it. So I'm hanging on to it just for an inspiration and for ideas of how to combine these. Now I grabbed a whole bunch of Stampin' Up! Ink here. The colors I pulled out are Lost Lagoon, Pretty Peacock, Old Olive, Crushed Curry, and Soft Suede, and then also Sahara Sand. Although I don't think I ended up using Sahara Sand. So I have my Stampin' Up! Chamois here. This is what I use to clean my stamps with, and I really love that it fits perfectly in that DVD case so that I can leave it on my desk and not have to worry about it wetting things on my desk, because the DVD case protects the other items on my desk. Now I am stamping both of the hexagons that come on this stamp set in both the Pretty Peacock and the Lost Lagoon, and I'm doing first generation and second generation stamping. So I'll ink, stamp, for the first generation and then stamp again for the second generation. That way you're getting subtle shading differences. Not so subtle, actually, they're pretty obvious. And so I end up using 2 ink pads. I get 4 different shades because I'm using both the first and second generation. I'm going to trim these down with my scissors, and I actually trimmed them in a way that that very first line is pre-cut. So now I'm just going in with my smaller scissors. These are Cutter B from EK Success. A good small pair of scissors makes fussy cutting way, way easier. So I'm just going to cut all the way around all of these shapes. And I love the variation from having the double outline hexagon as well as the thick outline hexagon. And these hexagons were designed so that all of the other shapes on that stamp set fit inside of the hexagon. We're going to be revisiting these hexagons in a future month where the inside of the hexagon, like a solid hexagon stamp that fits inside of those two, will be available, as well as more little shapes that will fit inside, so that this stamp set will be able to be combined with a future stamp set to give you even more looks. So if you've got this one, make sure that you keep in mind that there's even more goodness coming for this one. So keep it handy. So as you can see, I'm just cutting all of these out. And I don't typically edit my process videos. I like to show the entire process so that you can have a sense of just how long it takes me to do things. But this is just so redundant that I did skip ahead a little bit and cut out some of that process. I was just chatting with my patrons, so I wasn't in a huge rush to do it. I wasn't doing it as fast as I possibly could because I was telling little stories and reading comments and stuff as I went. Now that they're all cut out, and I really love how they look in that cream cardstock. Oh, and by the way, when you're stamping on that cream cardstock, keep in mind that that is Basil mono cardstock, I think it's called, and it has texture on one side, and then it's smooth on the other side, but it does have a slight amount of texture. So if you're looking for very, very crisp stamping, I wouldn't necessarily use that kind of cardstock, but because this is supposed to be kind of hand-drawn and rough looking anyways, I think that this stamping looks really great even on the back side of the textured cardstock. So you'll see in the close-up photos at the very end exactly what I'm talking about. I think I hold it up at some point too. I'll put in a freeze frame if I get a chance. So as you can see, I'm just placing out a random assortment of those hexagons, trying to line them up. I like aligning them so that there's a flat on the top and on the bottom, and then the points are on the left and on the right. It doesn't really matter. As long as you do it consistently, they will fit together, but I just like my hexagons like this. So I'm just kind of messing and fiddling around with it to try to figure out. I'm saying here that I really wish I had a hexagon border, actually. Does anybody know of a hexagon border punch or border die? Because I would love to own one. I feel like that border would be even better if it was hexagons. It looks okay being scallops, but the squared edges I think would have been a really great touch. You could make a hexagon border by just taking a bunch of these and putting them together, but I just didn't feel like doing that. Now I'm replacing some of these cutout hexes with stamped hexes just to make it more variable, like to add more variety. And that's variety both visually but also from a texture perspective. The ones that are flat really accentuate the fact that there are ones that are on pieces of paper here. And when I do apply them, I'm actually going to roll up the corners on them, and there's a lot of corners, there's 6. So, well, 6 edges. And so as I do that, this is going to have a lot of texture as I pull those up. So you see some of them I'm pulling up the edges before I even glue them down, and then for some of them I'm gluing them down and then figuring out where they lie, and then I'll pull them up based on that. I'll show you a close-up at some point and you'll see that this really adds a whole lot of texture to this page. Casts lots of shadows and really accentuates the fact that these are layered hexagons. So I am liking this, but if you've followed my channel, you know that I really like my title to be very, very legible and bold. And you know what? Now when I'm looking at it on video, it actually doesn't look too bad, but I'm unhappy with the way that hike is looking and how you can see all these distracting lines underneath of it from the hexagons. That's what I'm not loving. I think that if they were all lighter colored hexagons, I wouldn't have disliked it so much, but I'm going to make some changes because of that. You can see I have some stamps laid out on the hexagons. That's just to remind me that I wanted to put a little boot on this one. I'm using Sahara Sand, which is just a warm brown. No, I'm using soft suede. Sorry, that's my warm brown that I'm using. And I'm doing the hiking boot, the hiking sneaker, and I'm also going to stamp the trees on one of these as well at some point. I really want the boot to be beside the E in hike. For some reason, that just really appealed to me. So I'm putting that one there. And then the sneaker will go on the other side of the word hike. I'm thinking about moving the title up just because of how I just mentioned how I feel about the hexagons behind the word hike. But I don't like it up there, so I'm not going to. I'm putting a few hexagons up at the top just to remind myself that I want to save some to put up there. I could always stamp more if I needed more. I'm trying to decide where I'm going to stamp some more of these flat on the page ones, and I almost put it there, and then I thought, no, all three of them are going to be too lined up. Like all three of the ones that are on the background paper will end up being too lined up if I put it there. Well, there's 4 on the background paper, but 3 of them end up being really lined up if I put it there. So I put it down below just to add a bit more interest. And now I'm finally going to stamp those trees. I just stamped everything in brown. And at this point, I'm feeling like I'm going to probably leave these empty, as in not color them in, because I feel like that might be too distracting. But once I had the page done, I ended up coloring them in. You're not going to see that in the process video because I did it off camera. I actually literally did it right before I started narrating this. I was looking at it at the layout to narrate it and realized those need to be colored. So you will see it in the photos. I retook the photos. Now, because I've added all of this cream cardstock on the bottom, I know I'm going to put some of the cream cardstock in those hexagons at the top, but I just feel like I need more cream cardstock on this page. So I'm going to end up triple matting this. This is what I mentioned at the beginning where I changed the matting. So I'm adding a little bit here, and I just made a mistake with my trimmer and I trimmed it a bit too tight on the bottom. So rather than pulling the whole thing off and doing it all over again, I just also grabbed another very thin strip of the cream cardstock, and I'll just show you how I'm going to fix my mistake. So see how it's very, very thin there? You can barely see the craft cards or the cream cardstock there. So I just put a bead of glue along the edge, and then I'm just going to glue it down to this strip, just eyeballing it. And that's best to do with liquid glue because liquid glue has a bit more open time, so you can kind of smoosh it around if it's not exactly perfect, but it worked okay. Now that I've triple matted that, my third mat no longer covers the photo, backs the photo in the way that I want it to. Not enough of it is showing, basically. So I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm just going to extend this mat with another layer, and I'm not even really trying to hide it. It's just going to be another interesting layer. If you look super close, you'll see it, but if you don't, you won't, and that's okay. So that line will be covered by the photo. I didn't want that line to be showing where the two cardstocks meet, but I don't mind that you can see on the edge that these two pieces were pieced together. It doesn't matter to me. It's all pieced together and glued together anyways, right? So what does it matter? So obviously I thought that that was a little bit too big, so I took it off and made it just a little bit smaller by overlapping the two a little bit more, and I like how that looks. And now the torn edge is really on both the top and the bottom, not just on the bottom or the side or something. I'm using some foam adhesive to pop this up. This is the 3mm foam adhesive, so it's the taller of the two sizes you can get. This is included in our adhesive bundle add-on. If you get that, you get 2 sheets of the thick and 2 sheets of the thin. That way you don't have to worry about buying adhesive through the month. So we've got Take A with those chipboard letter stickers, and I'm just going to put this down and see how I like it once it's on there. Yeah. We'll move it down a little bit, again, because I wanted it to be kind of close to the boot. No, you know what? It's fine. It's not wrong, but I don't love it. So I'm just looking at it for a second there. You saw me just kind of like holding my head and looking and thinking. I'm thinking, am I going to leave it? Because it is fine. Like I totally could leave it. But then I thought, I'm here to scrapbook, so I'm just going to do what I want to do. So I'm going to grab those chipboard letter stickers and spell out hike with those. One of the benefits of using a tile letter sticker is that there's no distraction from whatever it's layered on top of. And so this is a much more readable title. It's not as interesting a title because I do love mixing and matching my fonts, but I like it, so we're going to go with this. There's no perfect solution to this problem I'm having, so I'm just going to go with this. I'm going to stamp some journaling lines on one of these hexagons, this one over here. Again, just using the same soft suede ink. And what I'm mentioning there is that I have my photo positioned so that more than half of it is up on that paper that I like so much, and less of it is on the yellow, and that gives me more room below for my embellishments, but it also kind of has the photo really does draw your eye in on this page, so you're going to be basically seeing a lot of that paper that I love so much. I thought about clustering my secondary cluster of hexagons right here by the photo, and I didn't love it. I thought I played around with it enough to just kind of see, am I going to like it more if I just change the configuration a little bit? But it turns out I don't. Like I sometimes it's good to just give yourself a little bit of leeway to say, well, maybe I'll like this more if I do this or if I do that. It's important to experiment and to walk down different paths when you're scrapbooking, just to see how things might look or if you might like something a different way. But so I took a picture of that just in case, but I really prefer the secondary cluster to be up in the corner here and one of them hanging off the page. Yep, that's the way I like it. I'm going to leave that lone little hexie sticking out of the top of the photo. I just think it's cute there. It looks like it's kind of peeking out or hiding or something. I like it like that. So I'm going to leave that one there. Almost accidentally, like I didn't design it that way, but once it was still left there when everything was done, I liked it. So I, as you saw, I glued it in. I'm pulling up the edges of these two so that they'll have a nice textured look like the ones below. And then I'll just trim off those two. And this layout is coming together pretty well. So we're almost done, but I do want to put some journaling up here as well. So the journaling at the bottom in that tiny little one says Hopewell Rocks, New Brunswick, September 2022. And now, as you can see, I put all three of these hexagons are going to hold some journaling. They're going to be journaling that stands alone in each one, not one message that goes across all three. So this says first trip with Annabelle as a family. And then I have climbing the rocks and walking on the ocean floor. So it's just kind of like snippets of memories of this trip. Now, I'm keeping in mind as I do this that the next couple of pages in my album are going to be pages from this event. So I don't have to document all of it right now on this page. So it's just a little bit of a intro, I guess. I was going to leave this page as it is, but I decided to add just a few tiny little touches from these chipboard sheets from Cartabella. These were in the add-on for the embellishment add-on for the Outdoorsy kit, and oh my goodness, I am so impressed with these. I don't think I've ever used Cartabella chipboard before, at least not in a very long time. And I'm really pleased with the quality of the finish of these chipboard pieces. They're amazing. And yeah, they're just great. And you just pop them out. They don't have adhesive on the back, so they're not chipboard stickers, but they're really great. I love them. They seem to stick well in the chipboard too, like they don't fall apart. So I don't know what I'm looking for. Oh yes, I'm looking for the pin from my glue, and guess where it was? Any guesses? It was stuck to my arm. So there we go. I'm going to tidy up a little bit, and I think I'm done, but I'm not. I'm going to put some of these sprinkles. This is the exclusive confetti mix that comes in the Outdoorsy main kit, I believe. And I am just sprinkling just a few of them, very, very few, in a few little places. This is not going to have a sprinkled look. It's just going to look like a couple of little dots every here and there. So I'm going to grab that glue again. This time I'm making sure that I put the pin in the little, I always put the pin in the bowl of sequins. That way I don't lose it. And I'm using my pickup stick. Oh, I love this thing. It's from We Are Memory Keepers. We do have a few on our website if you'd like to pick one up with your next kit. They are a dream. I just love working with them. They've got this waxy tip that is perfect for picking up sequins, but when you dip the sequin back in the glue, the glue holds it. So it's sticky enough to pick them up, but not so sticky to hold it, and it won't stick in the glue. Perfect. Love that tool. So now I'm going to show you some video close-ups, and there will be some photo close-ups as well, so that you can have a look and see just how much texture and dimension I'm getting from adding those cutout hexagons on my page. And just those little confetti pieces every here and there. They just kind of catch the light and give a little bit of a glistening look. So before I share the photos, just a quick shout out to my Patreon supporters. These folks help make this channel happen, so big thanks to all of them. Patrons get early ad-free access to my process videos and real-time unedited versions of my videos, as well as a monthly live stream, behind-the-scenes videos of my room and my process. And thanks to you also for watching all this way to the end. Let me know if you have any questions or comments, and be sure to like this video if you found it helpful or fun. And here are those photos of the close-ups of this page. This one was a lot of fun to make. It did take me a little bit longer than I thought, but I think that was just due to all of that extra cutting out that I had to do. But we love the process, right? Like, we're here to scrapbook. You might as well scrapbook and take your time and fussy cut if that's what you want to do. I hope you have a really great scrappy week, and here are some other videos that you can check out if you missed them, and you can subscribe by clicking this button right here. Take care and have yourself a really great scrappy week.